Hello. Hi guys. Okay. I'll start with a quick introduction about Aethir and then give everyone a chance to introduce yourself and your company. Aethir, for those of you that didn't hear Kaiser's introduction, is basically a distributed trip.com for GPUs. We do about 100 mil, 140 mil now in annual revenue each year. We are a little bit different from your normal decentralized, hardware or GPU DPINs in that we mostly work with tier 3, tier 4 data centers to provide enterprise level compute and enterprise level, service level agreements. Yeah.
Testing. Hi, my name is Shen, CTO at AKA Virtual. We're based in Tokyo. I'm actually originally from San Francisco, primarily from consumer applications and gaming. And AKA Virtual basically is doing VTubers and more recently exploring agentic AI for actually creating basically live streaming characters. Everything that we do is real time, and our interest is basically trying to bridge the gap between the IP world and the technical world.
Hi everyone, my name is Tino. I'm an engineer by background, just from research and PhD background at Imperial College in engineering. Today I'm focused on Move AI, so I'm founder and CEO of Move AI. We make animating 3D characters much easier, much cheaper, much faster. Also enabling high precision motion capture using AI from video. So instead of having to put on these special cumbersome suits, you can now do motion capture just from video. We help video games companies animate characters, so companies like EA, Ubisoft, TV shows like Shogun, Sonic 3, also used by robotics companies to help train robots, and then a few defense applications as well.
Hey everybody, Justin. I've been in games for about 20 years, and my latest company, Open Game Protocol, is a new way to distribute and monetize games, and we think that that's necessary because we think AI will allow people to create games at numbers and variety that will surpass everything we've ever seen before. So we're building a way to organize all those games and to distribute them.
Good afternoon, everyone. Kony here, CEO of GAIB. What we do is we bring these infrastructure assets of AI supply chain onto the crypto and blockchain. So we allow anybody to actually invest into AI infrastructure, like GPUs, which is now impossible for every one of you. And what else we want to do is actually bring these assets into a new asset class, creating different markets, such as what happened to gold back in the days, because these are the most precious commodities in our era, in the AI era. So we want to allow anybody to invest in them. So that's what we do, tokenizing AI infrastructure assets like GPUs, put it on chain, and build a whole economy around it.
Awesome. So yeah, most of you guys have done some really awesome work around AI creatives and AI content. Over the years, wanted to hear your insights on what were some key technological breakthroughs in AI content creation that really changed the game for you guys, and what are some upcoming breakthroughs that you guys are really excited about? Feel free to go down or answer.
I'll just start with, I think, a very obvious one, particularly in the VTubing space. It's just purely the accessibility of GPUs. That's just one of the biggest things is that we are now entering, we're literally having a discussion prior to this panel, the point where people are asking for when we can do inferencing on our phones. So a lot of our motion capture technology, including we work with Move AI as well, previously were only gate-kept by Hollywood, right? As in only Hollywood could do Avatar and all these other things like that, and you watch these documentaries and things like that. Whereas nowadays, and we're talking about this too, random introvert can create a 3D model, become whoever they want to be, and sell millions of views, right? Get sponsorships, and so that's actually a huge thing, right? And all you need is essentially just a GPU at home and be an avid gamer, right? So I think that that's like a huge thing, and that literally didn't even happen that long ago.
Yeah, maybe just to build on top of your point. So if you're not familiar, let's take a mid-range AAA game. That will cost traditionally $50 to $100 million to make. Take 3 to 5 years to make the game, and so that's pretty expensive. And it takes a long time, and maybe it's a hit, maybe it's not a hit. So it's a pretty risky business to be in this kind of content creation space. But as G is saying, the accessibility is really changing, especially with AI. Imagine, instead of 100 million, it takes 10 million or even 1 million. And instead of taking 3 to 5 years, it's taking you a year, maybe 3 to 6 months to produce this experience. I think that's just generally a trend that's happening, enabled a lot by AI. So we obviously help on the animation side, but then also on the generating the 3D, other 3D assets, the characters, the environment, lighting, other gameplay mechanics. I think that's just a general trend that I'm seeing. That's exciting. But then also, as it becomes easier to do, the content creation side for users is also a big deal. So whether it's around an introvert or a player of a game, I think it was mentioned in the previous panel. That's just a really interesting paradigm to see how that evolves over time as well.
Yeah, when it comes to games, I think we will see the same pattern we saw with the other modes of AI. So we saw LLMs break out as something that kind of worked, and we were all surprised, and then ChatGPT came out, and we started to see what it could really be when it was perfected. And the same happened with image generation, and then it happened with video very recently. So I would say VO3 was the first time that a lot of people said, wait a second, video generation is not going to take as long as I thought. And I think a lot of us had set our expectations to be, although everybody's very excited, a little bit further in the future, because we had this experience with self-driving where everyone said it was coming in a year or two, and it took sort of 10, and maybe still will take another 5, or maybe another 10. And in some ways, I think that's made us underestimate the speed at which the software that doesn't have the same safety issues can be improved. And I think games are the next medium where we're going to see this. And the real difference is, my last company at Zynga, we bet on the idea that everybody's creative. So games like Farmville, Words of Friends, every game was really based on this idea that everybody wants to share something that they made. And UGC was a very powerful way to grow the games. I think what we're going to see next is that people will actually do the same with the games themselves, not just the content inside the games. And we think that probably before the end of the year, that'll become much more evident. And then next year will be a big year, just like video was for this year.
I want to touch a little bit things that are different, but all the other speakers are making very good points about like the video models and also motion captures. So I think the biggest breakthrough this year, in the coming next few years, is actually on the physical AI side. This is actually a very big genre, because anything that touches like with body, with machines in real life, would be classified as physical AI. Because to my what I think in this way is like this: when the AI models is super intelligent enough, then what's next, right? So these are the brain, this powerful brain. They need the body to be moved around, to navigate the physical world here. Right now, Robotaxi has just launched the first test few drivers in Austin and then in the States. We'll be seeing a lot more fully Robotaxis being done all over the places, all over the world. So it actually represents a very, very big advancement in several things. Because for a robot to actually move, there are a lot of different models that you have to make it happen. We saw all these robots doing locomotion, this basic level of robotics intelligence, meaning they make moves, walk in, walk out, up, down, that's it. But in terms of how you actually maneuver the different nitty-gritties of movement, like how precise, how controlled, how much pressure that you can feel, is another level of hardware advancement that you need to make there. And the second level of all these physical AI advancement, where actually goes to other than locomotion, is actually manipulation. Meaning, you only not move in, out, up, down, but you also can do some nitty-gritty like gestures, grabbing things, putting down things, and also maybe doing a pinch, something like this. So it's technically very crucial, especially when it comes to real life inferencing, real life and action movement there. Because back in the days, it was all the human controlling all this robot behind. But what if they can do it autonomously? And a lot of physical AI and even figures and other like robotics companies are making quite a good advancement there. And they're trying to replace a lot of the labor inside the factories to do these quality checks, moving the parcels in and out, and different types of tasks on the industrial side. And then after this, you have to also understand a lot more things. For example, if you want a robot at home to help you do some housework, then not only they need to know how to fold the clothes, move things around, but also they can be emotionally helping you as a virtual girlfriend that we discussed with discussed before, right? So all these, we combine a variety of models, not only on text, speech, video, image. They also need to understand the depth of the 3D data, whereas the space and the relationship. So understand the space is one thing, understand your position inside the space is another model that helps you control that. And after that, what you want is all these robots to work in one place, work in one synchronized software. That, for example, let's say you buy a robot to come help you cook, and then the other one is maybe a humidifier. Like how can they control each other in the easiest way without pressing it? So all these boils down to a protocol in terms of connection side. Some people are solving this because every robot is using their own underlying architecture right now. So a lot more things as you mentioned, right? Autonomous driving is, we've talked about that L1 to L5 level for many years, and now we only need to L4, L3 level, not even L5. Hoping Tesla can move faster. So yeah, that's something I'm very, very interested in because I think that can unlock a lot of potentials and also realize a lot of the software advancement that we've seen on the model side so far.
Awesome. Next question, a little bit, I guess, into Justin's point. Like, I grew up as a very, very big gamer, and what I saw growing up as a gamer was, all the best games used to be made by the big companies, right? The big guys, Blizzard, Nintendo. But over the last 3 years, probably 85% of games I've played are made by indie studios. Do we see, especially with AI kind of across each of your industries, right? You all work with large enterprises, top 5 companies in the world. Across each of your industries, do you see this becoming more of a trend where smaller teams are able to execute at similar levels or enough performance to outperform a lot of these enterprises? Are enterprises adopting AI enough to outcompete them? Maybe we can start with Kony and then go back.
Yeah, sure. I do think that a lot of enterprises are picking up in terms of speed, but they're definitely not moving as fast as the startup companies that we saw. For example, the robotics example that I was giving just now. A lot of these like Toyota manufacturing car manufacturers in Japan, they're trying to adopt humanoid robots to do some of the tasks there, but they're still at a testing phase because a lot of the procedures need to be quite transferable in order to produce that. Otherwise, it's useless to train that model. Like they don't even have data to make the control movement and the manipulation there. So I think the blocker number one now is in terms of hardware side is quite costly for them to buy. The second thing is they can't really see a scale level, the mass production level to have all these robots being deployed. So right now they're only doing test cases. And then the third thing is on the model side, we're still missing quite some data, especially on robotics and human, physical AI side of things. Like the other text, language, image, they're pretty good so far. Of course, they can do better. And the fourth thing is, how about when you get these machines going in, like humanoid robots going in, how do you actually teach these employees to use them? That's why a lot of the Japanese banks and also financial institutions are asking the employees to take AI exams and AI certificate exams by the next 2 years. Which these exams only actually ask them to learn how to use maybe ChatGPT, how to use some summarizer for the emails to increase the productivity. But so these are the few things that I think we're blocking it. Number one is on the capital side. The other thing is sometimes they need compute. And in Japan, it's quite lacking in computation power. And the third is on the talent side, we're still missing quite some people.
I think we're seeing the same trend play out in each form of media that's been playing out for a long time. So you can think back to before the printing press, how were books distributed and copied, and it was rooms full of people who knew how to read and write and were actually copying them. And then we had the people who figured out how to use or maybe even build their own printing press to make the sort of newspapers that started to get popular. And when their advantage compounded, they became some of the modern institutions that we think of today, like the New York Times. They were early, right? And then they rode that advantage for a long time. But now what we're seeing is everything is becoming fragmented, right? And this is because the cost of creation and distribution has gone down for everybody. And so I think the question for enterprises is basically, in a world where distribution costs are zero for content that resonates for people, it leads to a amount of segmentation that's very different than what the enterprises have organized themselves around. So it's not about writing a sort of middle of the curve piece anymore in a newspaper that resonates mostly with most of your audience. It's actually about finding a very specific audience and going after them with content they love that then gets amplified on all these other channels. And so to answer your question, it's not that they're competing directly with each other, it's just that the smaller creators are eating the market share of the bigger creators because they're going more directly to the people who want the content with content that's much more tuned to their interests. And I think we've already seen this play out with photos and videos, and then I think it's starting to happen to an even greater degree because if you think about video editing, it was still quite expensive to do well, and now we're seeing the cost of that drop very quickly too. And I think we take for granted just how much of this is controlled by the algorithms that we use, but I mean, even when X changed their algorithm to use a For You page like TikTok, that was only a few months ago, and like the types of content that are surfacing on X now is just completely different, and that single change changed how startups are marketing themselves on X. It used to be that making a video for your release was kind of a nice to have. Now it's like, if you don't make a video, then Elon changed the algorithm, so you're not getting distribution. And then it coincided with Neo 3, these other tools coming out where now that's also possible to do. And so I think the real question for the larger brands is how do you take these big brands and then actually properly segment them to go after all these different audiences that are interested in much smaller topics than you'd ever be able to create for before?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and I can maybe give my thoughts on the games and the film and TV side. So, yeah, I think it's not that clear to see. Yeah, I don't think it's super clear whether AI will massively disrupt the existing players. And if you look at AI and the kind of traditional tech companies and Magnificent Seven, AI has only helped them get bigger and stronger and increase their moats. And at least on the game side, a lot of games companies, they have a lot of data that it's really hard to get hold of. Getting access to 3D data especially is much harder than speech, text, video. And there's only a handful of big games companies that are consolidated publishers, developers who have access to that. So I can see them just getting stronger and more entrenched. And especially recently too, that a lot of existing IP has performed really well in games. You mentioned the distribution challenge, that is also a challenge, and in some cases, if you can find that niche audience, it really can resonate with them, but in many cases, just marketing dollars wins. And there's only a few people who can really afford that. So my guess would be on the game side, the larger developers and publishers, they probably become bigger. However, then on the film and TV side, I can see the Hollywood model kind of being disrupted too. Because it is really risky to make a big project. It can take 3 to 5 years, a lot of $50 to $100 billion, and it might just flop. So it's the people who can kind of have this portfolio management risk, and the bigger players can really afford to sometimes take those bigger bets.
I think my answer will be pretty short, but what we're seeing on the creator side of things is just like Tino had mentioned, marketing dollars win, and so these big game companies still go to the small creators to promote their games, and then if they have a really clever marketing person, then it doesn't look that way, and it looks very authentic. And so that's still going to continue to be the case. I agree that the moats that the big companies have will only increase. The one thing I will always obviously champion is the individual creators as sort of my business, is that because of things like Cloud Code and all these other things, the possibility for the small indies to have an insane hit is absolutely multiplying. So I still think that's a positive regardless. And I like to look at the recent game that just came out called Peak. That's kind of gone viral, and they did a really clever job where they literally coded that thing in 4 weeks, right? And probably with a little bit of help of Cloud Code or whatever other kinds of things, but they cleverly put into place the fact that actually there's something we like to do, which is when you're playing the game, you get lip sync, and you can chat with people, and you're basically a VTuber in my opinion, and then those become viral clips, and then the marketing is built into the game, and so that's just a lot of really good creativity, and so I'm actually pretty excited about it regardless.
That's really awesome. Are we out of time? Do we still have time? Okay, we'll do one more quick question. Really the last question is around what you guys see as the trend of when we hit a point where hardware is no longer really the blocker for us, right? We see more and more hardware being produced every single year, and yet we're getting more and more efficient and better at every year. And I think specifically for Kony, how does tokenization help with that entire process, right? Yeah, maybe we'll start with Jaden and then go down.
Yeah, I guess because I'm just a consumer, I probably am hoping for essentially, like, one of our biggest markets is in Indonesia. The economy of scale is much more different. Everybody has Android phones because of the price points and things like that. And so I'm looking for when that inferencing can happen on those mobile devices. And we already see it. There's a lot of YouTubers that just do it on an iPad. That's it, right? That's their actual main computer. So that's my short answer.
The question was around role of hardware with AI growing.
When would we see hardware being less and less of a blocker for AI inference, AI training?
That's a tough question. I'll maybe just add on to what Gio was saying. So definitely, these models, particularly LLMs, they're reaching better and better performance, and you need a lot of compute to do that. You have even specialized chips in the cloud. And once you start to get diminishing returns, and you can have that compute happening on device, which reduces cost and improves availability, I think that's definitely a big deal. We've had the past few weeks getting access to GPU. It's been tough. If you run a platform, you're just trying to use any of these LLMs. So I definitely agree that once we can start to get really compelling models that can run on device as powerfully as in the cloud, that would be a big deal.
Yeah, I think it is very hard to forecast with all this stuff moving to client side. I would just say that if research stopped today, and we just had the models that we have today, and we just spent the next 5 years rolling them out in terms of making the economy more productive and building all the products we can build with them, we probably would increase inference demand by 100-fold, or just like my guess, in the next 5 years at least. And so I feel like there's so much room to grow on the inference side, and in particular on software. I think people forget just how quickly software products can grow. A lot of people say that ChatGPT was one of the fastest growing consumer products ever. It's definitely up there. It's sort of in the top five-ish. And I think that there will be more consumer AI products that take us by surprise, that we'll see that get to that level of inference, that continue to drive the hardware demand to the place where it's constrained, and it doesn't seem like that's going to stop anytime soon.
Well, I think my prediction is hardware will always be blocker. That's a bold prediction. But to the rationale behind it is because of this. We always see the demand on this side is increasing because everybody's saying here, like the demand for inferencing training will just be increasing to the exponential scale. And also, Jensen's saying the next model will be 100 times more, require 100 times more computation power than now. And then on the supply side, we're facing a scarcity. What is the supply side for compute? It's actually electricity. So it boils down to the question is, when can we get a machine that goes on, keep on making this computation power at a way more efficient way? So there's always a scarcity, which is the electricity. So that's why like hardware will still be a blocker, but whether the level is, can we go to another magnitude of 10 times more efficient to reduce the cost there? That's another story. And what GAIB is helping right now is, as I mentioned from the front, is we're doing tokenization of GPUs, making it accessible to anybody to fuel the growth of the hardware. Like you want to tap into the AI supply side, AI infrastructure side, this is the way that you can invest in them. And this is why we go for the AI generation.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you guys. I hope you guys learned something. I learned a lot listening to some of the best in the industry talk about AI use cases and the future of AI. So thank you guys for your time, and thank you to the audience for having us.
Thank you very much for your wonderful discussion.